let's take a look at Week 13. This Week 13 matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. This is a rematch of Week 4, where the Niners got smoked at home by Russell Wilson and the Hawks. The Niners proved to some people last week that, they shouldn't be slept on in the playoff race. They'll continue to look to continue the momentum going into a potential revenge game in Seattle against Russell Wilson, who's been free falling. The offense has been free falling. The defense has been bad. The Seattle Seahawks look like they're on the verge of not just being eliminated from the playoffs, but they could potentially be rebuilding overall after this season. So, the last time the 49ers saw Seattle, San Fran and had Russ and company shut down for most of the half. The defense, the front four were getting to Wilson. They were forcing him into bad throws, sacks, all that good stuff. But injuries on the Niners side of the ball, and Jimmy G kept turning it over. That began to take over. Russell Wilson began to cook and cook and cook. It was also during this game that Trey Lance had to start the whole second half because Jimmy G got hurt during the first half. I still don't know where at that point in the game. And this was also the game where Trenton Canyon had the empty cannon game, where he kept fumbling the ball. Yeah, remember that game? But since then, Russell Wilson, had his finger injured a few days later on a Thursday night against the LA Rams, and he had to miss a month of action. And the offense was just a very, very mixed bag under backup quarterback Geno Smith in the 3 games they needed him. Yeah, remember the Geno Smith experience in Seattle? And then when the Seahawks came out of the bye in Week 10, he clearly didn't look like the same QB that he was prior to the injury. He looked hesitant to throw deep downfield. He threw more erratic than ever. He preferred to check it down to guys like Gerald Everett than his top guys, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. He pretty much made DK Metcalf like a ghost. Like, damn. So this offense pretty much became out of sync and is on full display against the likes of the Packers, the Cardinals, who were still without Kyler Murray at the time, and it defensively depleted Washington football team most recently on Monday night in Week 12. I mean, it wasn't just the offense doing bad. I mean, the defense already was doing terrible already, even with Russell Wilson. So all this has resulted in a 3-8 tailspin, and losing to San Francisco could result in the final nail in the coffin for both their playoff hopes and Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson in Seattle. Meanwhile, for the 49ers, they're riding high on a 3-game winning streak with 2 quality wins against the LA Rams and the Minnesota Vikings. I don't really count the win against the Jacksonville Jaguars because, they're pretty bad in their own right. At 6-5, the Niners are squarely in the playoff hunt. They still have a lot of work to do on both sides of the ball, but they got a pretty favorable schedule going forward with a 2-game road trip ahead of them in Seattle, in Cincinnati, both games in the afternoon. And then you got Atlanta, Tennessee, Houston, and the Rams to close things out. So not a bad schedule going forward for them, but they have to take care of business. I mean, for as much as I preferably don't want to see it, but they have some things to take care of first. Like I said, with the Rams free falling at this point, and they also have a tough schedule, unlike the Niners. If the Niners continue to do well, they could surpass the Rams for the 5 seed in the NFC wildcard, and instead of facing Tampa Bay and Tom Brady in the first round, they could face whoever wins the NFC East. But like I said, the Niners are going to have to do their end of the bargain. They got to keep winning games at their quality of pace. And that quest for the 5th seed or the 6th seed, or just making the playoffs in general, it continues with a 2-game trip that begins in Seattle. Now, some keys to victory. The for both teams. For Seattle, you got to rattle Jimmy Garoppolo. The Minnesota Vikings, even though they lost, they did a pretty decent job of doing this. They forced him into an early interception in the first quarter, and they rattled him so much in the first quarter that Jimmy G backpedaled into a sack. If the Seahawks front four, which is not great right now, if they can get to that offensive line and make Jimmy G into really unforced throws, then they can have their way in this one. Unfortunately, the Seahawks defense was on the field so much in that game against Washington. It's going to be a short turnaround for them, and they not be at 100% energy. You got to find a way to get Russell Wilson cooking on a vulnerable Niners secondary. I know I said this last week in my general NFL recap show, but this was a good opportunity for Russell Wilson to cook on a also vulnerable Washington football team secondary. But unfortunately, that also didn't happen. So if this doesn't happen here, if they don't get Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf involved, I don't know what will. This is like pretty much Seattle's last chance to get Russell Wilson at least cooking. Like, their playoff hopes are pretty much all but mostly done with. But you got to at least get Russell Wilson cooking to get his trade value up in this game. For San Francisco, you got to take care of the football. That includes Jimmy Garoppolo. No unforced turnovers, no mistakes whatsoever against the Seahawks team. I mean, yes, the secondary is bad, but Jimmy Garoppolo has to play a near perfect game in this one. You got to pressure and sack Russell Wilson. I mean, that offensive line for Seattle is pretty bad. I mean, but our front four is so. We only have Nick Bosa in this one. So the 49ers front four has to generate some pressure onto Russell Wilson, and they gotta contain him like they did that they were supposed to do in Week 4, and make him create some mistakes. Lastly, they have to attack Seattle's weak secondary in more ways than one. For as much as you want to run the ball in the middle, ball control, Jimmy G has to do some more damage in the air. Get it to Brandon Ayuk, get it to Juwan Jennings, get that ball in the air, get George Kittle more involved in the passing game. This is a very weak Seahawks defense, and I think Kyle Shanahan should be able to exploit it, and he should exploit it at all costs. So those are my thoughts on this upcoming game against the Seattle Seahawks in Week 13. Hopefully the Niners get their revenge and split this season series, and if not, it'll take a hit to their playoff chances, but not by much, hopefully. But at least get some revenge on Seattle and put their playoff hopes into the grave for good.